Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Aaron Miller, the principal at Odle, and I appreciate you taking the time to join us this afternoon. We just finished similar session for our students, and I hope that the students found that to be helpful. We know it's a busy time of year, and appreciate you taking this opportunity to join us. We wanted to kind of get one more opportunity like this in before we break for summer, just to kind of continue focusing on supporting the transition from elementary school to middle school. We did have a session in February, which we call the Odle Information Night, and then typically the session that we did in March, we would be doing in person, which focused on course registration. That session happened right when we were entering into the closure period. So that focused on course registration, and that was posted on our website. And it seems that everyone got that information because we have all of the registration forms and all the registration information, and we're in the process of completing schedules for next year. So this presentation today, you will see some repeat information from what we covered in the last two presentations, but we're also going to be adding some new information. And at the end, we have a pretty good collection of frequently asked questions that come up around this time of year. So we'll be addressing those questions as we get to the end of our presentation. So I'm going to be talking for a little while, and then our assistant principals, Ms. Barut Del Fiero and Ms. Verrata, are going to join. We're going to be talking about general school information. We're going to be talking about academic learning and high quality instruction, social emotional learning, school culture and student behavior, extracurricular activities, our summer orientation program, and then, like I said, closing with our frequently asked questions. One frequently asked question is this: what will school look like in the fall? And we're not going to be able to answer that question today. We can speak to it a little bit at the end, but the short answer is lots of unknowns. We are still, as a district and as a community, working to formulate some answers. And I know that through our district communications department, there's been some information coming out around ways that community members can stay engaged in that and have input into that as well. So mostly what we're gonna talk about today is what Odle looks like under normal operations. And like I said, we'll answer some of the questions around what it looks like right now for our current version of remote learning, but mostly we're going to be focused on what Odle looks like under normal operations. And then, as we've done this spring, like everyone has done this spring, we'll just be adjusting to the circumstances as we go. So our purpose as a school is to empower students academically, socially, and emotionally, to create a welcoming, equitable, and safe environment, and to help students become critical thinkers, problem solvers, and responsible members of their communities. And this purpose as a school is aligned with three of our key district priorities around high quality instruction, student well-being, and culture and climate. And so what we're going to be talking about is, how do we go about fulfilling this purpose as a school while focusing on high quality instruction, our student well-being, and creating a positive culture and climate. So currently we have 1,037 students, and here you see sort of a enrollment profile. And as you look at this and you look at the racial diversity, the cultural, ethnic, linguistic diversity, we are an incredibly diverse school. We have students who speak 42, actually I think 43 different languages in their homes. Students come from just about all of our elementary schools in the Bellevue School District. They come from around the state of Washington, from around the country, from international schools. So it's really a special place where students get to interact with people from all different backgrounds and experiences, and hopefully start to see the world in a way that's a little bit bigger than the community that they've so far seen the world from, and start to form relationships with people and form new and meaningful friendships in the middle school context. About 30% of our students participate in our general education program, 5% through special education services, 58% through the advanced learning program, and 7% of our students qualify for services through our English language learner program. When we think about high quality instruction, really the first thing we think about is equity and inclusion. And there's a lot around how we think about creating equitable and inclusive classrooms. But one of the things that we've been working on this year is increasing awareness of staff members' racial identity, particularly white staff members, and how the implicit biases that we all have influence our work and influence our students' experience of school, and how in a school as racially diverse and culturally and ethnically and linguistically diverse as Odle, we think it's really important that our staff has a strong sense of their own identity, so that we can work to understand the multiple perspectives of all of our families and all of our students. Part of that is examining our own biases, our own implicit biases, as I said, and also learning how we can develop practices that make our classrooms more inclusive and more equitable. So that's a big focus for us as we work with our staff and emphasize what we think high quality instruction looks like. We also think about our focus on high quality instruction in terms of 4 key aspects of academic learning. So the first is literacy across content areas, which means that, you know, we're thinking about the importance of critical reading, critical writing, speaking and listening, not just in the context of language arts, but in the context of all of the content areas. We're focused on subject matter knowledge, which is the sort of big ideas, the conceptual understanding across content areas, and subject matter skill, which are the specific kind of procedural skills that students need to continue to hone and develop as they advance within each of the various disciplines. And then we think about academic learning in terms of just overall critical thinking. These are not skills that are specific to any one content area, but skills like reasoning with evidence, asking questions, building explanations, considering multiple perspectives, making connections. We think that that high quality instruction requires students to be engaged in this kind of thinking on a regular basis across all of the content areas. The academic learning happens in the context of a college preparatory program in which students are required to take 3 years of language arts, math, science, and social studies, 3 semesters of physical education, 2 semesters of visual or performing arts, a semester of CTE or a STEM course, a semester of health, and world language. And world language is actually not one of our requirements, but we have just about 2/3 of our students participating in either Spanish, Chinese, or French. And when we say a sort of college preparatory program, what we mean is that our curriculum, starting in 6th grade, and really our district curriculum starting in kindergarten, but our secondary curriculum 6-12 is aligned so that all students, as they progress through our required sequence, are on track to be college ready, so that in their senior year they will have, if they choose, opportunity to access post-secondary learning. So that's what we mean by a college prep program, and we work really hard to try to keep that vertical alignment so that as students transition from grade to grade and from school to school, that that is aligned so that students are ready for the next level. Here's an example of a sixth grade schedule. So you see we have a 7-period day, and the classes are 50 minutes long, except for first period, which has a kind of a 2-minute window built in the beginning there. So school starts at 8:38. The highlighted classes are the required classes. So all students, all sixth graders are going to take PE, science, language arts, math, and social studies. And then the PE class you see is a semester-long class. So this particular student has PE first period, first semester, and then second semester this student has drama. You see for this student the elective classes are drama, Chinese, and choir. And so those elective classes will vary from student to student based on the course registration forms that you completed. And the order of when students have science, language arts, math, and social studies and PE, that will also vary from student to student, but those 5 classes are the core required classes in addition to the elective classes that students choose. We have 3 different lunch periods. All sixth graders eat lunch from 11:20 to 11:50, which is our first lunch period. And then after 7th period, we have what we call tutorial and activities, and I'll talk about that in a second. This is our schedule every day except for Wednesday. Wednesday is the same sequence of courses, 7-period schedule. It's just compressed. We have 40-minute periods instead of 50-minute periods, and the school day ends on Wednesday at 2:20. And there are no after-school activities for students, except for some activities. So that's an overview of the sort of sample student schedule. We know that students and families want to know when will the actual schedules be available. Draft schedules are going to be available online at the end of August, and I don't have an exact date for that yet, but that will be communicated sometime in August when you'll be able to access student schedules, a draft schedule, either through student view or parent view, and then final schedules will be distributed on the first day of school. You see at the bottom of that schedule, you saw that our day after 7th period ends with tutorial and activities. Tutorial goes from 3 to 4 every day except Wednesday. It's an opportunity for students to get more individual attention, to extend or deepen learning. Students can choose to attend tutorial, so any student could choose to attend tutorial on any of those days, and teachers can also assign students to tutorial. So, and we have both. We have both students choosing and teachers assigning tutorial. If a teacher assigns a student to tutorial, then a parent is notified both by phone and by email. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, we also offer by invitation from a teacher what we call extended teaching and learning from 4 to 4:45. We have the library open as a study zone every day from 3:30 to 4:45. And also from 4 to 4:45 is when we have that activities period where students can participate in one of our extracurricular programs. We're going to talk more about that in just a few minutes. And then we have bus transportation for students who stay all the way through the activity period or through extended teaching and learning. We have bus transportation. It's not the full bus service that we have after 7th period every day. So for students who ride the bus leaves at 3:30 after 7th period or at 2:20 on Wednesdays. But we also have some limited bus transportation with limited routes at 4:50 to support the extracurricular activities. So I think, just thinking about this idea of high quality instruction and supporting academic learning overall, I think for parents, the theme is to really view middle school as a time of increasing independence. And particularly in 6th grade, we're really talking to students about self-management, planning, being able to advocate for yourself and learn how to learn. It's a big transition from 5th to 6th grade. And, you know, in addition to all of the learning in the content areas, students are really learning how to navigate a whole new system. And we think that one of the ways that parents can really be most helpful and supportive is to try not to micromanage kids through this transition, but to really help them establish systems, determine priorities, break down tasks, reduce distractions, set goals, and communicate with staff. If parents can be focused on those sorts of things, helping students to manage themselves, do the self-advocacy, do the planning, we think those are really key foundational skills for students to be successful in middle school and transitioning into high school. On the district website, you'll see a button, and I think we want to click through here, that district website, a button there that if you click on grades, it takes you to another screen that takes you to the parent view login. And so the parent view login is a way of accessing your students' information, and the students have a version of this called Student View. It's a way of accessing students' personal information, including their standing in a particular course in terms of their grades and the assignments that are due. And, you know, that is a tool that can be really helpful for helping students to manage themselves. It's not helpful when students are using that, when parents are using that to try to like manage school for students. It is helpful as a way of having a conversation with students about what's going on in their classes and how they're tracking what their workflow is and what their priorities are. So that's an important tool to be aware of, and encourage you to early in the fall to try to get comfortable with that. And we'll also offer some information sessions around how to use the parent view tool. Another thing, and I think one of the questions that we're going to get to at the end is around how to stay connected with information at the school. We post a lot of information on our website. I email out a lot of information directly to families. There's also the Odle PTSA newsletter, which comes out once a week. So you can go to odleptsa.org right now on the left-hand side of the screen where it says subscribe to newsletter, put in your email address, and you can start getting the updates from the Odle PTSA. So that's a good way to kind of stay connected with information that we're pushing out through the PTSA, and that and our website and the emails that I'll be sending. You'll be up to date on all of the necessary communications. One more thing I just wanted to touch on as a key component around our approach to high quality instruction is technology integration. And so each student is going to get a laptop computer when they start in the fall. And, you know, we think about just in terms of access to content and critical thinking and ways of representing information. We think it's important that that students have access to this kind of technology. We think it's important that every student has the same device as a way of creating equity and access for all students. The main platform that we use for managing instructional materials and curriculum is the Microsoft OneNote application. And we will, when we distribute the laptops, do some training with students on OneNote as well as other key applications. And of course, this spring, this kind of technology integration was critical as we transitioned to remote learning. And again, with all the unknowns going into next fall, we know that this kind of technology integration is going to be really important regardless. The main tool that we used for live instruction and remote learning was Microsoft Teams. So that's another key application that we'll make sure that students are supported with. So that's an overview of our focus around high quality instruction and academic learning. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Barut Del Fiero now, who's going to talk about our focus on student well-being.
Good afternoon, Odle families. Thank you very much for that, Aaron. I'm going to go over and talk about student well-being, which is a very big part for me, as I think about the development of your students and then coming into middle school, as you know, there's going to be a lot of changes going on with the school, and there's going to be a lot of changes going on with your student or your child. So at Odle, I believe that we really focus on student well-being through the lens of social emotional learning. And I know as a district, we really value this. I'm sure your child has spoken to you a lot about what they're doing with Ruler and putting themselves on the mood meter. And here at Odle, we try to do those same things, just kind of giving it a middle school spin as your child grows and develops more maturely. So when we're looking at our lessons and when we're looking at what we're doing, we look at the social emotional learning standards that we have from OSPI, which is the Office of the Superintendent. So in all the lessons that we're doing and all within our scope of social emotional learning specific lessons, we are also trying to do that school-wide within all of the different course contents, whether it's social studies, language arts, math, and so forth. But with all of that, we're really looking at the 6 standards, which is self-awareness, self-management, and self-efficacy. So you can see the whole first half of that is knowing about yourself. And the other half of the standards is social awareness, social management, and social engagement. So how do I interact and am responsible and respond to others in my environment? And how do I do that in a well-balanced way? And so we're going to talk about what that looks like and why we are doing social emotional learning. So if you're like, well, why do we do this? Of course, we want to tell you why. It's always that question. You've always had kids, we all have kids, and we don't know why are we doing this? And I'm sure you're asking the same thing. So when we're thinking about social emotional learning, we're thinking about the increased emotional intelligence that's correlated with a lot of these concerns that we are seeing and do see as we transition from elementary to middle and high school. So the idea is that if we teach students all these self-management, self-efficacy skills and teach them how to be more socially aware, we can have a lot less of these things that are challenges in the middle school years and beyond. So if we focus on social emotional learning, we are going to see students with less anxiety and depression. So if a student is able to say, wow, I am thinking about this thing and it's making me feel this way, how do I make sure I regulate how I'm handling this within myself and within the social circles, and how do I communicate the needs that I have effectively? With that, we also are encouraging our students to identify where there are instances of bullying or harassment. So if students are involved with social emotional learning, we should expect less bullying and drug use overall. So if students are aware of how they show up and interact with other students, and if students are seeing that and they have the skills to address when they see a student getting bullied, or if they see when a friend of theirs is going through these signs of depression, anxiety, and might be contemplating drug use as a way to escape those feelings, how does social emotional learning help prevent those things? Because they are learning how to do that, we see improved leadership skills. We see improved confidence, which also helps with their academic performance, and more engagement in school overall. And so when I think about engagement at school, it's not just my academics, it's how do I build my school community? How do I help my peers with academics? How do I help my peers with their emotion? How do I help and say, wow, I really want to take on a leadership role in my school? And that looks really different for every student. Some of them are going to join ASB or different clubs that we'll talk about, but some of them might also say, you know, I see a need at my school and I want to advocate that we have a group in my school that addresses those needs. So through social emotional learning, I see a lot of those challenges and needs and questions really being answered. We'll go ahead and talk next about how we as teachers have some real focused lessons. So at Odle, we're very committed to this. We've had a lot of professional development on this, and for us to understand how social emotional learning works for us as individuals, right? Because if we don't understand that and we don't practice that as adults, how can we teach kids to do that? So we did spend quite a bit of our PD in the years leading up to teaching students about this. We do have 8 school-wide lessons. 4 of them are based around ideas of harassment, intimidation, bullying, as we know that is a big concern that we have. And the other part is based off some curriculum that I'll talk about called Mind Up that is really helping with that self-awareness and so forth. So these 8 lessons are taught in a home classroom, if you want to look at it that way. So for instance, this last school year, second period, we had reserved for extending that class period, and every teacher in the school was involved with these lessons, and every staff member too. So during this time, the second period teacher often was paired with another staff member to make sure that the whole school was on board and understood some of these 8 really important concepts or practices. I was even involved with one of them, as Mr. Miller was, Ms. Varad, and so forth, just to make sure that everyone understands that it's a whole school process and support. So our first one is about how our, thanks. So the first one's like how our brain works. The second one is harassment, intimidation, bullying. So that's in the fall. So once again, giving it that, building up that positive relationship and positive school environments that if students see that, they know how to address it in multiple different ways, and make sure that a trusted adult can help that student who's been bullied or feels harassed, and then also make sure that we can take care of that up. Mindful awareness is one of them. Role and impact of cyberbullying. So that's always an important one. As you know, your student's going to be getting a laptop. And so we have this really great lesson that I enjoy that talks about a student out there using Facebook, and he had made a big mistake at a soccer game and was the goalie, and it cost the team the game. And then so other kids were making fun of him and so forth, and how that impacted him. But then on the flip side, the lesson goes on and shows a real life event that students saw that and they rallied behind that kid and built him up and, you know, flipped the story so it became something positive. And so that's what we want to keep teaching with our students, is how to be really great digital citizens. Another one is about perspective taking. So how do we see the same thing in different ways and respect each other's differences? Once again, we look at HIB, so the harassment, intimidation, bullying later in the spring. Choosing optimism. So how do I have that mindset and looking things on a more positive spin and having that growth mindset? And one of the other ones that we finish off of is the role of race, language, religion, and gender, and how do we use words or shouldn't use words in appropriate ways, and how to report that. Okay, so go ahead and switch to the next slide. Thank you. And so part of the curriculum that we have with those lessons, 4 of the lessons are based around Mind Up curriculum, which teaches students the strategies for focusing their attention, improving self-regulation skills, building resilience to stress, which we know going from one classroom teacher that knows you with a class of 30 students all year, and now they're going to 7 different classes, 7 different teachers, different mixes of students in those 30 seats from all different grade levels, depending on what the elective classes. So that is something that will be a change for a lot of your kids, and also developing a positive mindset in both school and life. So with the Mind Up curriculum, we also have a practice that we do school-wide, which is a mindful moment. So at the end of all our lunches, at the end of 5th period, as students go into 6th period, again, the last 2 periods of the day, we school-wide ask teachers to do a mindful moment. And so that's a time for them because, you know, things get really ramped up in the afternoon, their energy level is really high. And so they just came to lunch, a lot of the 7th and 8th graders. That's a time that we ask all our students, and we even have a special bell going into 6th period for us to really recenter ourselves, make sure that we're attending the here and now, and it's a considerate, non-judgmental way for us to be mindful and refocus our energies into what we need to do at school. So we're paying really close attention to our present situation, the role that we're in, thinking about what it is we want to accomplish for 6th period and the rest of our day, and just really kind of, for me, hitting that reset button. And then why have the mindful moment? And it prepares students to make sound choices rather than be ruled by their emotions. So we really talk about that brain development, especially as we know there's a lot of changes going on in the middle years. Okay. Next, I'm going to talk about some of the activities that we have school-wide. So as Mr. Miller was describing earlier, we have a lot of students, a lot of interests, a lot of social awareness in our school that we support. And so we have a lot of these activities that are student-led. And so, for instance, Unity Day, we have our ASB students, our leadership students really figuring out how to have a whole week actually at Odle to celebrate how we stand up against bullying, for example. We participate in No Name Calling Week. We have Spirit Week where the students decide, well, what fun things are we going to do to build unity? So sometimes it's like a pajama day. It's like everybody wears their pajamas, of course, just roll out of bed. We have maybe different things like, oh, wear school colors days or your Odle gear, all those things to try to create a sense of community. We have College Week. So our AVID program, leadership, and ASB students really focus on College Week, as we want all our students to be mindful of what their college and career steps are going to be after middle and high school. And so we really have students think about what steps they're taking, where they see themselves in the future, how are they getting there. And it's really fun. We have the teachers share their road to college and what college was like for them. And we have trivia, we have door decorating where the students help the teachers build door signs, or some of them are like full door signs of the college that they went to and share their college story. So it's a really great time. I really enjoy it that kids can really start seeing themselves in the future. Of course, we celebrate MLK Day, and we have some great speakers, and our students have really stepped up to doing that presentation. We definitely focus on random acts or kindness overall, as you can see with ourselves. So we have Random Acts of Kindness Week. We're also supporting our LGBTQ students with our Day of Science and other clubs that we have. So at Odle, we really try to honor and respect and celebrate the diversity in our school. One of the things that I really enjoy as well that we do as sixth graders is a Camp Orkila. And we traditionally do that in May, and I'm fingers crossed that we get to do this again this year for your students. But it's 3 nights that we spend on Orcas Island at a YMCA camp, Orkila. Our sixth graders get to pick some of their cabin mates, and then they get paired with some other cabin mates, and a group of high school students are their counselors. And the counselors really reinforce those ideas of social emotional learning. They do a cabin charter, and they think about how they want to treat each other and so forth. So throughout the year, throughout all our activities, we're really thinking about how do we support student well-being and how do we build that sense of community and belonging at Odle. And so this is a great way to end the year as we start planting those seeds as your student moves to 7th and 8th grade, and making sure that they are still productive members of our Odle community. And it's also just a lot of fun. I mean, the students get to go have their science class at the pond, and we get to go have activities and fun sporting events, and really get to celebrate each other as the kids make skits about things that they're learning. So it's a great opportunity. I hope we get to do this again in the spring, and those are some things for us to look forward to as we support student well-being. I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Ms. Verada, who's our other assistant principal, and she's going to talk about our 3rd initiative, which is the culture and climate of our school.
Thank you, Ms. Barut. Good afternoon. I'm Danielle Verada, and part of the way that we ensure positive climate and culture is through really enacting our welcoming and equitable and safe environment as outlined in our Odle mission. To do that, we want students to embody 3 behaviors at school: being respectful, responsible, and safe. As a school, we have some specific behaviors or specific beliefs around behavior. The first is that we want to model and foster respectful and kind relationships among students and staff. We believe it's our role to ensure that clear and effective procedures are taught to students. We take several opportunities throughout the year to teach, reinforce, and reteach clear procedures to recognize respectful and kind behaviors daily. We also have a clear set of beliefs around when problem behavior occurs. We believe that behavior is a form of communication, and when problem behavior occurs, it serves a purpose for the student, and it's our job to figure out what the student is communicating and needs. We also believe that behavior is a learning opportunity for staff and students. We want to approach behavior in the same way that we would approach learning new skills and gaining new knowledge in class. When problem behavior does occur, we identify natural consequences and find ways to repair harm. Our approach to doing this is that we first teach all students the expected behavior. Then we reinforce the desired positive behavior that we're seeing from students. When problem behavior does occur, we respond with natural and logical consequences and provide students with opportunities to repair that harm. We teach behavior and being respectful, responsible, and safe in all locations of the school. This is one example of teaching expected behavior in classrooms. So we may ask students to be respectful by following the teacher's directions and advocating for your own learning. We ask students to be responsible by working as hard as they can to the best of their abilities and to participate positively and to persevere. We ask students to stay safe by using classroom supplies safely and appropriately and encouraging others' thinkings and ideas. So with that, I'm going to introduce or turn it back over to Ms. Barut, who's going to talk about clubs and activities.
Hey, nice to see you all back. So I want to talk about clubs and activities at Odle. So many of you may have been involved with Jubilee Reach sports in your elementary schools. We have that as well. We have 2 on-site coaches who help with the sports and the activities through Jubilee Reach. They also help with lunchtime supervision on the fields and the playground equipment when students finish lunches. So it's great to have that community support. But if your student is like, yeah, I want to do football or soccer, basketball, cross country, golf, that's all done through Jubilee Reach, and you will receive information about that as it gets closer to registration. The school also has some different sports seasons. Specifically, badminton is a super popular one that we have. So just make sure that you're always listening to the morning announcements. Since we've moved on to online learning, our ASB students and staff have developed a weekly, I'd say, news update show that has been shown as a video each week. It's called This Week in Odle, and it's amazing, but it also gives you the updates as to what to expect, when to sign up for things, what changes are coming, and so forth. But as I mentioned, we have a lot of different clubs and activities. Some of them are more academically focused, like future problem solvers, French club, chess, but there's also some that are just really social. So we have like a fiber club where students come together and they knit some really cool things and they share that with the school. We also have some different clubs that help with the environment, our Black Student Unions, our Rainbow Club. So it's a kindness club. So there's a lot of things that also move into what kind of social interest students have. And then if your student says, you know, I really wish we had a club that, I mean, a few years ago, we had a club, a couple students say, I really want to do a drone club, flying those, and great, your student can come talk to Ms. Ra, say, I'd like to start an ASB club. She'll give them the packet. They have to go find other students to be part of the club, find a teacher, advisor, and that could be something. So that's a really cool part about moving from elementary school to middle school. There's a lot more opportunities for leadership. What I'd like to talk to next is a leadership group that we have called WEB, which stands for Where Everybody Belongs. This group is really going to help your child transition from elementary school to middle school. And I want to talk to you about who they are. So WEB students are 8th graders focused on helping 6th graders have a fun, positive, supportive first year at Odle. As you know, moving from a classroom of maybe 25, 30 kids, and now moving to 7 different classrooms can be really scary. And so the WEB students are really responsible older students. They've been hand selected from a large pool of applicants. This year we had over 100 kids, I think, and we could only take 90 of them. And they've met the qualifications of being a good role model, a positive leader on campus, and just overall great leaders in our school community. And what they're going to do with your student is they're going to connect with them throughout the school year. And so I'll talk about the August event in just a moment. But that group of 8th graders that are assigned to your 6th grader and group of 6th graders are going to be with them all year. And so during these events, these check-ins like the Web Connection Days, tutorials and things like that, it'll be the same group within the larger group and really creating that close community between the 6th and 8th grader. So that's really fun to look forward to, getting that first contact in August and seeing that all the way through the spring. And then let's talk about what that August day is. So fingers crossed that once again, we can do this as we normally have. There's an August orientation on the 27th from 8:45 to 12:30. And so this is the time where your student meets their web leaders. They all have pretty cool shirts. I'm wearing mine today for this current year. And so they get to meet them. They get to do some fun icebreaker games. They get to talk about what kinds of things are exciting them about middle school. And then also what are the things that they have concerns about, like how do I open a locker? Where is the lunchroom? What part of the hall has 6th grade classes or LA classes and things like that. So they get to have a tour of the school and really start having a good home base, or at least role model to work with. What I love about the web shirts is there are certain days that the web leaders wear throughout the school year. So they have, like I mentioned, those get-together days for tutorials and movies. But also at the first few days of school, we like to wear these so that students are like, I don't know what to do and I don't know who to ask. They can easily identify one of the students or adults that help with web with our shirts, and they're like, okay, if I know that person's wearing that shirt, they can definitely be someone I can trust and talk to and not feel embarrassed about asking that question for maybe the 5th time on how do I open my locker, which is a totally typical thing that middle schoolers ask. So make sure you've got that date covered. Of course, it's tentative, but if there are any changes, we will definitely reach out to you. Okay? And then I know you have some other frequently asked questions, and so I'm going to go ahead and turn that over back to Mr. Miller, and then we'll go through some of those.
Hold on just a second, Mr. Miller. We're having a little bit of a trouble switching here. Mr. Miller, I'm not actually able to get you. Oh, I think I can do it. Go ahead, Mr. Miller. I'm not sure your video is going to come up.
Okay. Can you think my audio is working?
It is.
Okay, fantastic. Well, this has been a, you know, this spring has been a lot of new learning around technology, and so we frequently find ourselves running into some glitches like this, but we'll carry on. Great, looks like the video is now working. Okay, so we have about 15 minutes left, and we have about 25 questions that we have that we have collected in advance, and I want to try to be done by 5 o'clock because we said we would just keep this to an hour. So we're going to go through these questions and try to be pretty quick. Starting with, how will we know about important back to school information? You could expect to begin receiving emails directly from me sometime around the second week of August, and then periodically into August as we prepare for back to school. Given the uncertainty around what the fall is going to look like, I'm sure that you've been getting all of the district communications. We try to coordinate with the district office so that you don't get identical information from me as you would from the district office. So there'll be some all district communications coming out through the BSD communications department. But in terms of specific Odle information, you could expect to begin receiving emails from me second week of August. And then information will also be posted on our school website. Students, I mentioned this, will be able to access their schedules towards the end of August and then on the first day of school. When will students receive class confirmations from their course selections submitted? We don't actually do any class confirmations apart from this, the issuing of the schedules that we do at the end of the summer and the first day of school. Will there be full-time online learning options in the fall for those who choose to attend from home to be 100% safe from the coronavirus? I think that's one of the big questions that we're trying to figure out is, what will instruction school look like in the fall, including instruction for students who might make that choice. And so I don't have an answer to that question, but I know it is one of the big questions that is under consideration right now as we just think about in-person remote learning and whether or not we do one or the other or some combination of the two. That question I know is definitely a key question for consideration. How much time do students get in between classes? Students have 5 minutes to transition from one class to the next. We find that despite students sometimes saying that it's not enough time, in fact, it is enough time, and sometimes students will say, well, I'm late to this class because I got to go all the way across the building. And I say, well, would you like me to join you one day and see if we can do it? And then usually then they figure out that they actually can do it. So 5 minutes is enough time. Are teachers able to individualize instruction if students need more challenge or support? This question, we think about what we call differentiated instruction, which teachers are always thinking about how to meet the variety of needs that students have in a classroom. So differentiated instruction looks at how we might need to communicate information differently, how some students may need more or less time, in what ways students can sort of demonstrate what they know in more than one format, and in what ways students do need opportunities either to go deeper with more complexity or need some kind of more scaffolding and support from teachers. And so that type of differentiation is happening in our classrooms, and also through the tutorial period that we offer, teachers are able to provide more of that kind of individualized support. How large is a typical class? That's a difficult question because we have some special electives that we run as low as like maybe 15 students. And then we have some classes, some of our music classes or a PE class, which might run as large as 40, let's say. But generally speaking, most of our classes are under 30. And in the areas of math, science, language arts, and social studies, you could expect that probably an average class size in there is probably between 26 to 29 students.
All right, so I'm going to try to get through mine in 5 minutes. So Ms. Verada has 5 minutes for hers. So when is Picture Day and who is a photography company? We've partnered with Dorian for several years, and right now we are scheduled for Picture Day on Wednesday, September 16th, with the retakes on October 21st. When do students get their locker assignments in combination? So even though we're going to have tentative or draft schedules available through Synergy, or Parent View is the way that you see it, and the end of August, when you get your actual schedule, the final schedule, which is on the first day of school, you will also receive your locker combination at that time. And the reason for that is we want to make sure that the schedules are set as we assign students based on their 7th period class. And so, and the reason for that is so at the end of the school day, students aren't really anxious and go, oh my gosh, I need to make sure I get to my locker to get to the bus, and maybe they need to pick up stuff from their PE locker or something out of their music locker. So if we pair that 7th period is always close to your locker, that helps lessen some of that anxiety that students have. How can I put money on my student's lunch account? If you've been part of the BSD family, it's the same process that you did in elementary school, but essentially there is an online program that you can access through our website to add it electronically using your debit or credit card. And then if you feel more comfortable sending your child with a check or cash, they can go see the lunch workers either before or during their lunchtime or before school. Do you provide therapy or other mental health treatment? So our school has 3 school counselors that work with the admin, the families, and teachers, but their job is really focused on supporting students with issues that they might have with peers or questions or struggles that they're having with their classes. And so that's the primary role of our school counselors, but we do have community partners like Youth Eastside Services that works with Odle and our team that I just mentioned to help any of the students that need some additional mental health treatments in the form of a outside therapist or mental health treatment. And so each student's really individualized as to what that looks like, but please reach out to one of the admin or your student's school counselor to see about those services. Where can kids go when they need someone to talk with? Well, they can see me and Miss Rada, right? But if you're asking about school counselors, we do have a process where students can drop in a request that's right outside the counseling office. And so there's a form for them to fill out. And there's like, I need to see you urgently, like as soon as you're available, or hey, I just kind of have this question and like to check in with you, so they can also gauge how urgent that need is. And so the counselors check that pretty often, and we'll get to your student as soon as possible. And one of the other things is some of our students are much more used to communicating with people via email. So if that's something that your student wants to do, they can also email their school counselor as someone they want to talk to. How are typical middle school topics covered, such as social media overuse, clicks, body images, etc.? Are these in classrooms or in small groups? So while our counselors do offer some small groups focused on specific needs that students have, like a grief group if they've lost a parent, or a parent that's been deployed for military service, most of these things are done in the classroom. So for instance, social media and overuse and things like that, our students, when they receive their laptops, they get extensive information on the expectations. They get a lesson on that right away. And there's follow-up lessons that talk about being a responsible digital citizen, as I kind of mentioned with some of the cell lessons, but we even have some that go beyond that, that are often taught in language arts and social studies classes. Things about clicks and body image issues. We often have that covered in health class in addition to the cell lessons, and our health teachers do an amazing job. Like I have had the privilege to see a body image set of lessons over and over, and just really questioning what are the ideas of beauty and things like that, and what does it mean to be healthy inside and out. So those things are definitely covered. How is food in the classroom handled, particularly in regard to food allergies? So we have a nurse that works with us 4 days out of the week, and she's really well versed in making sure we are updated as to what students have an individual health plan. All our teachers are required to and read the requirements for any students with different allergies and whatnot. As a practice, we don't have teachers handing out food to students. Of course, you know, there are situations that there might be a class project or something the teacher has to work with the families, the nurse and so forth to make sure they're following the individual health plans. And of course, we do that to make sure that all students are able to participate regardless of what kinds of allergies that they have or life-threatening health considerations. And so we really are very aware of that and want to make sure that everyone is able to participate. And our staff trained to administer emergency EpiPens essentially. And yes, every year we have that annual training. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Harada with 5 minutes to go.
Thank you. Okay, first question. Do you have a nurse and other health staff on site full time? Like Ms. Barut said, we have a nurse on site 4 days a week. For the 1 day a week that the nurse is not at Odle, we have some of our office staff cover the clinic. The next question, what does the day currently look like for 6th graders in terms of live instructions, meeting, assignments, online? So right now, Monday through Thursday, students attend 1 to 2, they attend 2 classes per day for 50 minutes each, where typically live instruction occurs. Also on Monday through Thursday, there are 1 to 2 additional class periods for 30 minutes each that are optional time for students to get questions answered and review learning and possibly meet one-on-one or small groups with teachers. Outside of these times, teachers are also available for pre-scheduled check-ins with students. On Friday, we have 2 50-minute learning lab times that are optional and are intended for teachers to meet with students one-on-one or in a small group, or it's a time just to check in and answer questions. Typically, assignments are distributed and collected through Microsoft OneNote or Microsoft Teams. How does remote learning work for more hands-on classes like engineering, music, PE, art? So these classes are still happening and teachers are creating modifications for the content given the current learning environment. A couple examples is that students may record themselves playing their instrument for band, and then the teacher offers them feedback on their recording. Or in PE, a PE teacher may record a workout that the student plays and does alongside the teacher. Can you tell me more about Final Forms? What is it and what is it used for? So Final Forms is a platform that's used at the middle school and high school level that streams paperwork, permission slips, registration, and other important information required for field trips, athletics, and activities. With this platform, families don't need to fill out duplicate forms for each club or activity. Instead, important information can be stored in the Final Forms platform and updated each year. You should receive an email from Final Forms, probably sometime in August, that asks you to create an account. After creating an account, you can fill out the required information so that your student can participate in clubs, activities, and sports. Do students have to try out for sports teams, clubs, or is everyone able to play if they are interested? There are a couple clubs that have some space limitations, but otherwise, all clubs, sports are open to everyone. Is there a full list of activities, sports, and clubs to look at? Information about clubs and activities is updated regularly on the Odle Middle School website. For a full list of sports that are offered at the middle school level, visit the Bellevue School District Activities and Athletics page and look for middle school. The final question is who coaches / leads the sports and activities? Teachers, outside employees. So we have several activities and sports that are offered and coached through Jubilee Reach, which is a Bellevue School District community partner. For ASB clubs, they typically have teachers as advisors. Our PTSA has additional offering of clubs that are led by parents. All right, and with that, I will turn it back over to Mr. Miller.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I hope you found this helpful, informative. I hope your students did as well. Odle's a really special place, and you know, we don't know what the fall will look like, but we do know that our team, our staff's going to be ready to support our 6th graders making the transition. We're excited. We're excited to welcome everyone, and you know, please be marking your calendars for the web program, and you'll be getting more information about preparation for web. But that's really an important orientation program for the students. I think we see kids coming out of that day feeling really excited about the first day of school, which is how we want them to feel as they start middle school. So thanks again. Good luck finishing school this week, and we'll look forward to connecting with you again around the 2nd week of August. Thanks very much.